in YouTube?
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, can you make co-host
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Karthik and me?
sure. And I want only sir to be seen in the YouTube. So all of us have to be hidden. So you have to manage that.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, I've made you co-host check. Fine.
Ma'am, we are live.
Good evening to all of you and very warm welcome to this particular event, How to Become an Entrepreneur. Today we have with us Abdullah Hassan sir to ensure that our knowledge of being an entrepreneur is uplifted. I request Suparna Deepak ma'am to introduce her to all of us.
Good evening, everyone. So it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our special guest to you all today, Mr. Abdul Hassan. He serves as the CEO of Aldo Capital, and he drives the Aldo Capital strategy and is involved in all the investment phases, including exploring investment opportunities, evaluating, negotiating, and selecting. Mr. Abdullah has over 17 years of experience in telecommunication and technology. And prior to joining Aldo Capital, he has served as Business Development Director of British Telecom in MENA region and the company. He also served as CEO of Wireless Internet Mobile Data, which is Kuwait's first Wi-Fi operator. He has also served as board members of several of uh, Aldo Capital Investments, including What Three Words, Motive. You have Terragins, Think Tax, and board observer to Appy Parking and Chiller Bike. He is an advisor to Senior Vice Chairman at Abdul Aziz Al Upton Group of Companies. He also leads the drive to identify ecologically technology investments globally and launching startups with the F&B business globally. And Sir is also the mentor for Infinitum Education Limited, which is the Oxford University's innovation cell. We are really grateful that Sir is with us today, and I'm sure the students are going to be immensely benefited by his talk. Over to you, sir. Kindly start the session.
All right, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It was a nice introduction, and you've been very kind with my introduction. But let me also welcome everybody who's on this session today, and hopefully everybody will find the reasons of benefits to be on this session because it is an important one. We are living in very difficult times. We are living in times where economy is sliding and the concepts or the prospects of economy coming up is very bleak. The issue of COVID has dominated everybody, and India is no stranger to it. The ones who really have been taken a bigger hit in all of this is the students, because generally the philosophy was that you finish your education and there's a job waiting for you, there's an industry ready to take you on, there are employers just standing there and saying, hey guys, when are you finishing your university, and come over, and you can be hired. Now all of those who were hired are already looking for jobs. So the new ones, the younger ones, you millennials, will have a much bigger challenge, and that is why entrepreneurship is a very, very good option for you and a very good avenue for you to consider. There are many reasons for that. And one of them is the fact that it allows you to develop as a person in a completely different way. When you're an employee, you're constantly listening to rules, regulations, instructions, directions. There's a manager who's telling you what to do. There's a boss who's telling you what to do. As an entrepreneur, no. You set your milestones, you set your domain, you set your rules, you set your expectations, and you set your energy and you set your desire and you set your perspective. So it changes you. It changes you very quickly. Even before you know it, you are a completely different human being. You're far more mature. You're far more sound. You're far more reasonable. You're no longer that young kid who just wanted to have a good time. No, now you have a purpose in life. You have an objective in life. You have something that you want to deliver. You have something that you want to show. There's something that you want to achieve. And that's the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur. And today's session is all about that. It's about teaching you some very simple tricks of how you can be an entrepreneur. So these are simple ideas which you can consider and use to develop your startup idea, and hopefully you can make your business successful with time. Now, what you need to understand that the field of entrepreneurship, the world of entrepreneurship, is one that has only two things that are required from you. Number one, you have to be responsible, and number two, you have to be accountable. This is the one area where everything that you do will be held as something that you need to account for. There's nothing that will go hidden, because this is your business. This is investors' money. This is your future. This is what all your team is waiting for you to deliver. It doesn't matter what your age is. Your accountability is the same. It doesn't matter what your age is. Your responsibility will always remain. So you need to basically have this as a perspective and hopefully take it and drive it to success. So let me start the workshop today, which is a global workshop that I've done for a number of years now, and it's very, very successful globally. Like the lady who just introduced me, part of this lectures was used in my lecture for the Oxford University back boot camp, where we took 26 international entrepreneurs from idea to launching business. And some of that will be taught to you today. So it's a very simple thing. I need you to pay attention. I need you to be focused. I need you to feel excited about what you're going to listen to, and then we can take it from there. So yes, you have heard something about me, so I'll just run through it very quickly. I'm currently CEO and head of co-founder of a venture capital fund called Dow Capital. We have two funds. One of them is in the United Kingdom, UK, where we invest directly. I look at deals, I look at opportunities, and I go on from there. Another is a co-fund in America, which is an investment that we did with another fund, but we are directly involved as LPs, which is limited partners. The two terms that you generally use in a VC is an LP, limited partner, and a GP, which is a general partner. The GP is usually the person who runs the fund, who operates the fund. LP is usually the partner that invests in the fund. So we are there as an LP. In the United Kingdom, in UK, no, we're GPs as well. I have had 8 years of amazing experience with British Telecom. I used to head their strategy and business development for Middle East and North Africa. And I'm proud to say that those years and those achievements have helped me learn a lot and develop as a professional, some of which I'm going to share with you today. I am on the board of some of these companies, and some I'm no longer on the board of because I have other things that I've got myself engaged with. So I'll just tell you the top ones. What Three Words is actually a very interesting startup from the United Kingdom. And what this is it's a competitor to Google Maps. So you know with Google Maps how it is that you have to share a location, and once you share a location, the person is still calling you, right? And asking you, hey, where exactly are you? Because Google Map gives you a range of around 200 meters plus, and you still need to ask people where it is. So what Three Words did is they divided planet Earth into 57 trillion boxes of 3 by 3 meters, and they gave random 3 words as addresses for those 3 by 3 meter boxes. So let's say where you are at the moment, it could be called house.cat.dog. So anybody who wants to reach you there will basically just type house.cat.dog and they will reach. A very simple idea, but it's globally accepted idea and a very successful idea. After we invested, Mercedes invested in it. Mercedes from Germany, of course, Daimler, the mother company. And then they were with me on the board as well. So now all the new Mercedes that are being launched, including the ones in India, will have what three words: GPS, system navigation, and nothing else. Why? Because you don't need to put street, you do not need to put block, you don't need to put town, city. You just say the three-word address, that to voice activated, and the car takes you where you need to go. So technology has grown, yes, but what has also grown is innovation. And innovation not on the technology side itself, but also on the way we think. The way we think has driven so many new ideas and so many new startups that are coming up and developing this world and developing its economy. As the economy is facing trouble, this is the kind of innovative thinking that you need to have when you develop your startup idea. And some of my experiences with my board engagements with some of these startups and my work itself has allowed me to basically understand how to take this and develop it into a working model. Now, the workshop you're attending today has already been presented and engaged with a number of different events. It has reached around 17 countries, and attendees from more than 94 cities have attended it. So what you're attending today, thanks to your college, is something that's a global workshop, and you are thankfully attending it completely for free. And the reason for that is I don't do any engagements for students or women or refugees, and I don't charge for them because I'm very interested in making sure that success is developed and success is created right at the grassroots levels. So today's workshop is a global workshop, so please pay attention. And what you need to do is keep your notepads and pens with you. So if you have any questions, you write them down so you don't forget. And I'll try to go a bit slow, but I'll also try to be very illustrative and elaborative in my discussion, so you are completely aware of the idea that I'm trying to express to all of you. So what is a startup idea, right? A startup idea begins in actually three areas. The ideation stage, where you come up with an idea. You were sleeping, you got up and said, oh my God, I have this amazing, brilliant business idea. I think we should do it. You were in shower and something went wrong. You came out of shower running, catching your mom and saying, mom, I think I have a good startup idea. This is how most startup ideas come up. They come up with a brilliant moment, a moment of magic, and one of those eureka moments, and then you have an idea. Now that's the start, but that's not the end. After you have an idea, a business startup idea, what you need to do is to validate that idea. For you to validate that idea, you need to do certain things to ensure that your validation is complete, it's accurate, and it's actually reliable. And then you reach to the point of starting the business, because the business cannot be started until you have finished these two stages. You came up with an idea, you validated the idea, and now you're ready to go for the business. So how do you come up with these successful startup ideas, right? What is the trick? What's the mantra of coming up with startup ideas? Actually, they're very simple, and they're so simple. And that's the scary part. I always tell people that driving a car in a traffic road is much easier than driving a car with no traffic on it. Because if something comes in the way, all of a sudden you're completely caught by surprise, right? So that's the point about the startups, that you have to think about everything completely, and you have to be cautious and attentive and focus all throughout. Whether you get success or you don't, you have to constantly be focused. And the focus is about not just about the objective, but also about delivering quality, about delivering something that people would always want, not just once, not just twice, they always would want. That's why something called adoption of new customers is a big thing, right? Customer adoption. So today we will try to learn about what are the simple ways of coming up with successful startup ideas. So what is the first trick of coming up with a successful startup idea? So what you do is you look at, what are you good at? Is there a skill that you're good at? Is there something in your education that you've been very good at? Let's say you're good at finance, you're good at commerce, accounts. Okay, you're good at it, you love it. So most likely what you should consider as a starter is that you should consider starting something in the fintech space, okay, the financial technology space. Why? Because you're comfortable with that area. So let's say you want to be a banker and then you want to develop something there. So what you do is, one of the things is the most comfortable way of coming up with a new startup idea, is that you basically take in your own skills and you say, okay, which part of my skill can I develop and become a startup entrepreneur? And that's what you do. So you look at yourself and you look at your skills and say, this part of my skill is something I'm very strong in, I'm very comfortable about. And then you go from there and you say, okay, let's come up with an idea, because your idea and your skill have to match. If your idea and skills don't match, then you have a problem. What's the problem? The problem is very simple. Anytime within your startup journey, if you have a problem, operational problem, strategic problem, marketing problem, funding problem, you couldn't find a solution because you don't have the skill for it. So it's important that one of the ways of coming up with a startup idea is that you do an idea, you create an idea with a skill that you're good at. And that would help you really develop a good uh, startup idea. So what's the second one? What's the second way of coming up with a good startup idea? Now, the second way is actually good because it helps a larger amount of people. So there must be something that bothers you. Okay. Now, anything that bothers you needs to have a solution, right? So if you have a problem getting inside your classroom, you need to find a solution. One of the solution is that you'll go look for a backup key, a substitute key. Another solution is that you will actually try to open the lock using a trick that you've seen in YouTube. Or you will try to think, okay, once this door is open, I need to find a way to convince the teacher that let's have a lock that's a smart lock so that we don't have to be stuck outside. So anybody can have access to the code as long as you are a student. So something that's bothering you, you take that up as a challenge and you try to form a solution for that challenge. And that solution for that challenge becomes your startup idea. So let's say another idea. India is filled with a lot of traffic, right? Whichever part of the country you are in, whether you're north, south, east, west, there's always traffic everywhere, most of the metro cities. So what if you came up with a startup idea where you told the local government that, listen, I have an application, an app that I've launched, which says that if people move in the busy streets according to schedules, then you give them something called points. And if they have more points, then they get some benefits, something to do with discounts in government stores, or something to do with, certain privileges that they can have in government-owned properties, etc. But you came up with an application that said that 10,000 drivers can only come on the street between 9 and 10. The other 10,000 have to come on the street after 10 o'clock, and so on. I'm just throwing out ideas here. So what you did is you looked at a problem called traffic, and you came up with a solution, which was an application that divided or segmented travelers, drivers into categories, okay, of time slots. And then each category, maybe it's 10 minutes category, maybe it's 5 minutes category, but it makes it different to the traffic flow, the congestion, right? And that way it helps the government, the traffic department of the government, manage traffic, and you have a solution, and that solution becomes a very important resolution to develop a startup idea. So the second way of coming up with a startup idea is that you look at something that's been bothering you for a while, and then you sit on it to come up with a solution. And then you check and validate that solution, and then you try to launch it as a startup idea. So what's the third way of coming up with a startup idea? The third way is actually very, very simple. It basically says that if there is a successful business somewhere close to you, so let's say you're living in a street where at the end of the street, Vodafone or Reliance opened their new building. So the most obvious thing you can do is to set up your startup idea to repair phones close to it. So you have this little kiosk you put in a mall that is close to this Reliance huge building, because everybody will come to you, right? Because they know very well that if I'm going to a mobile company's building, if I want to repair something, if I want to update my software, if I want something, some downloads, I can go to your shop. So the third best way of coming up with a startup idea is try to become part of the food chain of a successful business. That way you would have secured customers that are coming in because they're always going to the major brand, and you are part of the supply chain. And that is the third way of coming up with a startup idea. The fourth way is a difficult one, but if you actually did it, then you have very huge successes. So what you do is you look at the world today, and then you imagine what the world will be, right? And that way, what you will do is you will create a startup idea that is basically something that will develop for the future, and people like it. So if you remember, there were times when we bought all our greens, our groceries, our food, our medicine physically. We visited a chemist, we visited, the street side vendors selling vegetables, and then Reliance came in and Tata came in, and they started giving us, organic greens and all of that. But then what happened? COVID came and everything shifted to online. Now you're all okay and comfortable buying your vegetables online. You're all okay and comfortable getting your medications online. So what is the thing that will happen now that we are in the midst of COVID? It's no longer early, we are in the middle of it. And after the third wave, things will settle down. So what is the thing that will be a trend? You need to understand it today. So the people who launched, the founders who launched Uber, they launched not because there was a need, right? Everybody was happy going in a taxi. Everybody was happy. But they created a need that seemed a little bit more desirable than the current solution that existed. So the current solution of taxis was nice, but when everybody thought, oh, okay, the Uber solution is a little bit better. In fact, I can also share taxis as well. So there can be 3 or 4 people sitting in the same cab, in the same Uber, and going to a destination. So Uber became a concept that was needed, but people didn't know it was needed until it was presented. So those are the people who create startup concepts looking at a trend. So they look at a trend, they create the need, and they launch it. So what if you looked at current situation and looked at a future trend, and you tested it by talking to mentors, by talking to your teachers, by talking to people like me, and we kind of give you our honest feedback, and it's good, and our feedback is good. It says that what you're thinking about is a great idea. That would become a very dominant startup way of launching a startup idea. The fifth way of launching a startup idea is basically to be attentive and to be focused and to look around you, because one of the things that we don't do these days very often is that we're not attentive about what's happening around us, right? So this lock that you see on your screen at the moment, this lock was a lock that your grandfather used, my grandfather used, his grandfather used. And the purpose of the lock was very simple. It was to keep strangers outside and to keep people inside the house safe. Right? That was the purpose of the lock. The purpose of the lock was to keep valuables safe inside something. So there would be this jewelry box and there would be a lock, right? Now this lock became dominant part of our society and culture for thousands of years. Even when technology was made in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s, we never thought about changing the lock, right? We thought, why should we change the lock? It seems fine. Until someone looked at the lock and said, okay, I already have computers, I have mobile, I have data technology, I have mobility. Why can't I make a smart lock? Why can't I say to Nithya that, Nithya, you can access your office only during these times, because after that, it will be automatically locked. If you want to access the office after this time, then I'm going to give you a special code and you can only open with that code. So all of a sudden, our traditional lock that was used by our grandfathers and forefathers became a smart lock. And today, this smart lock is being used across the planet rapidly for a lot of good use. And all of a sudden, the transformation happened, right? All of a sudden, we have this amazing situation where we have people, accessing and exiting using this technology. And this technology is very simple. It was there. The technology existed. You didn't need to create something new. The only thing you did is you created an electronic lock and you fixed it there. And then all of a sudden, you have a smart lock. And that's what innovation is all about. That's what innovative thinking is all about. And that's what you all need to do as entrepreneurs. You need to pay attention around you. There are many things around us that need changing. The television has been the same for like donkey's years. Look at your computer keyboard. That keyboard was made for a typewriter. You see, the way the keyboard has been designed was to stop you from connecting very fast, because the keys of the typewriter were getting stuck. So they distributed all of these alphabets in a random fashion so you don't type fast. Well, guess what? We don't have typewriters anymore. We do, but they're just used in a very marginal way compared to mobiles and compared to laptops and computers, PCs. And we're still using the same iPad. We're still using the same keypad that is being used since maybe 100 years. Now, why isn't any one of you thinking about what can we do to change the keypad, and why? It's not about just changing the keypad, right? You also need to define and explain why. What is the purpose of it? What are the benefits? What do you get out of it? It's a simple thing, but it could be transformative, and it could change an industry. It could save time. It would create more functions, etc., etc. So you as an entrepreneur need to come up with all of that. And that's what innovative thinking is all about. So number 5 way of coming up with a startup idea is to look around you, pay attention, be focused, and try to see what can you change that currently exists and can become a very good innovative startup idea. The number 6 one is very simple. You're already living it. So what is Amazon, right? Amazon does not have its own product. So what Amazon does is collect products from so many people, put it on a platform, create a delivery channel, and deliver to your doorstep. That too very cheap. So if you actually went to a Nike store to buy the shoes, it will be more expensive compared to if you bought it here at Amazon. Now, you need to come up with ideas to do that and say, okay, I can make education cheaper. I can make delivery cheaper. I can make laundry cheaper. I can make owning clothes cheaper. I can make, who knows, today we have the concept of real estate divided into 3 parts. We have the ownership part, where you buy an apartment, a flat. We have the rental part, where you lease or rent a flat for 11 months or 12 months, whatever it is. And then you have something called hotels, right? So you go into a hotel room and you stay in a hotel room for 1 day, 5 days, whatever it is. And then we came up with the Airbnb. There is nothing else besides this. So there's Airbnb, there's the conventional hotels, there's the rental apartments, and there's ownership. What if one of you came up with a new way of owning property? I don't know. What if one of you came up with something with a hybrid between ownership and an Airbnb? This is what you need to do. You need to figure what you need to do and come up with options and ideas so that you can develop yourself as an entrepreneur and create ideas that can transform economy and the way we live. So these are 6 ways of you coming up with interesting startup ideas. So I'll go again one more time. The first way of coming up with a good startup idea is something that you're good at, a skill that you're good at, that makes you more stronger and more firmer with your startup idea. The second is looking at a problem that's has been bothering you for a long time. You look at it and you want to solve it. You create a solution. That solution becomes your startup idea. The third is that you complete a successful brand. So you don't try anything funny. You just look at something that's doing well, and then you become part of its food chain. So it's a big mobile company. You become a mobile repair shop. You become a mobile shop that sells mobile covers or skins, whatever you call them. Number 4, you look at trends and see where they can go. So you can come up with a startup idea and you can catch things earlier, and you can be a successful concept. It could be anything. Number 5, you look around you, pay attention, focus, and then you say, I'm going to change that lock that my forefather has been using for donkey's years and make a smart lock. Similarly, there are other ideas you can come up with and change and make them more useful to launch your startup idea. And number 6, you make something that's already available a little more cheaper for people to own or have. And those are the 6 ways for you to come up with a startup idea. Now, once you've come up with your startup idea, like I said earlier, what you need to do is to make sure that your startup idea is validated. That means it is fit for purpose. That means someone likes it and is willing to go for it. It's almost like a survey. It's like a research before you launch. So what you do, you ask 4 questions to 100 strangers. Remember what I said, 100 strangers. Not your mom, not your dad, not your brother, not your sister, not your friend, not your college mate, not your teacher, not your neighbor, not the uncle at the end of the street, someone who does not know you. And you need to ask 100 of these strangers 4 questions. Number one question, you say, do you agree with this problem that I think is a problem? Right? So you say, I think the traffic is a problem. Sir, do you think this is a problem? You're sitting in a bus, you're sitting in a train, you meet this stranger next to you. You say, hi, can I ask you a question if you don't mind? If he says, yes, please, go ahead. Say, I'm working on a project and I need your feedback. Can you please allow me to ask you 4 questions? He says, yes. So first question, sir, I think traffic in our city is a problem. Do you agree? So if he says yes, write it down. Then say, okay, I have a solution to solve the problem of traffic. He says, oh, really? What's your solution? You explain your solution to him. If he likes it, then tick mark that. Then number 3, tell him, okay, if I launch this solution, do you think you'll be willing to pay for it, or would you like the solution for free? Would you like this app on your phone for a payment, or would you not be willing to pay for something like that? You would want it for free. And number 4, if the guy says, I'm willing to pay for it, ask him, will you be willing to pay $1 for it, $5 for it, $10 for it, whatever it is, or rupees in your currency that you have. But this way, what you've done is you've asked the 4 most fundamental questions that will define the future or the legs of your startup idea. And after that, everything will go on from there. Your business model, your revenue model, your commercial model will be set. And what you do is you take this feedback after talking to at least 100 strangers, and then you register it within yourself. And if more than 80% have agreed with you, they have agreed with the problem, they agreed with the solution, they agreed whether they will pay or they will not pay. And if they said they will pay, they've also agreed to tell you how much they're willing to pay. Now you're ready to go ahead. If your response is less than 80%, that means there's something wrong with your idea. You need to recorrect it, you need to look at it again, and then you need to basically take it back to another 100 strangers until you are done with your validation. Once you're done with your validation, you've registered it, then you're ready to go. Why? Because these are the most important questions that will define what is the perceived market value of your startup idea. You need to understand this much earlier, even before you raise a single rupee from an investor. You need to make sure that your startup idea is validated 110%, that you have talked to enough people. So when you go to investors, you can share this data for them and say, I have validated this. This is something that's needed. And you don't just check all 100 people in one area. You go across so that you have enough, variation, so that when the investor says, hey, are all the 100 from your street? Say, no, they're not. They're in different parts of the city. So once you have this completed, you are now ready to set up your business proposition. And what is your business proposition? Your business proposition is to basically now start warming up your idea with people that you know. So let's say if you had a food app, you need to discuss it, the features of it, the benefits of it with friends and family. That's okay. That you can do. When you start to warm up the idea, when you try to build a consensus, now you can talk to family and friends, because you need to now get some real feedback about your startup idea. And then when you have everything in play and you're ready, you need to now have traction. And the way to get traction is to test your idea or pilot your idea. So let's say if you had an application, you try to create a demonstration of that application and try to actually make it work. So it's called the MVP, basically, minimum viable product. That will allow you to see how good your product is. This is also called the soft launch, because this soft launch allows your potential customers to interact with you in a live product, in a live situation. So all your feedback is now being relatively correct and relatively accurate. Now, some of you are good at this, others are not. The ones who are good at this, they will do very well as entrepreneurs. I call it selling castles in thin air, which means that you're good at talking. You're good at basically expressing your ideas. Now, the ones who are good at it, very good. The ones who are not, I suggest you start learning how to be this, because as entrepreneurs, you're constantly required to sell things, even if there's nothing to sell. You're are constantly required to create ambition, expectation, so that investors, customers, team members, your own employees, your suppliers, everybody connects with you constantly. So the idea is very simple. The idea is to basically be able to sell the concept of a bike without showing the bike. The idea is very simple. It's the idea to sell a house without showing a building. So it's called a good presentation. It's called a good discussion. So if you have good presentation slides, if you have a good discussion skill sets with you, you'll be able to create the idea in somebody's mind clearly. And once that idea is clear in someone's mind, then they will be able to basically say, hey, guess what? I think I like what you're doing. I like the way you're thinking about this. And I think I'm ready to help you with the seed capital. So remember, in the startup world, in the world of entrepreneurship, people are not really actually looking to touch and feel something. What they want to do is touch and feel your idea. And the best way to do that is to have good communication skills and to have very good slides. That way, you're able to sell your idea even before creating the product or service. So I'm sure some of you must have heard of crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, where you sell the idea and people invest with you at the idea level and then go on forward. Then, of course, you need to create a business plan, and the business plan has to be done professionally, because when you go to investors, they will look at specific numbers. They are looking for sales forecasts. They're looking for expenses. They're looking at market numbers. They're looking at customer numbers. They're looking at pricing models. They're looking at margins. All of this is very important. If you don't know how to do it, I suggest you talk to somebody in your college or somebody within your network who's already a trained financial expert who can give you time to help you develop this business plan professionally. Because if your business plan is not professional, everything falls apart. Nobody takes you seriously. Even if you're very good at communication, even if your idea selling was perfect, by the time you come to presenting your plan, if your plan is not professionally done, you're going to fall apart. So it's important that if you don't know how to do it, you talk to your professors, you talk to your teachers, you talk to your dad, you talk to your mom, you talk to that uncle who works for a bank, you talk to the neighbor who works for an investment company and is a CA, a chartered accountant, but you take good trained help. Marketing obviously is very important for anything in this world, right? Without marketing, you're not able to sell anything. Nobody knows you exist, nobody knows you're important, and nobody knows why they need to engage with you. So how do you do marketing? The best way to do marketing is to basically make sure that your network is connected with you and your network understands all your marketing messages. Marketing is all about messages. It's a communication strategy. Marketing is not really about images. It's not about fancy look and design. It's more about the message you're trying to give. So make sure that the message is clear. Why? Because if your message is not clear, no amount of good design is going to save you, because the market will not understand what you're trying to sell. So you need to basically make sure that what you're trying to sell is clear to someone, and everybody that's listening or viewing or seeing that ad or that design is completely in line with the message that you want to sell. And again, if you don't know how to do it, take professional help, talk to a marketing professional, and let him or her help you develop your first marketing plan. Like any other business, the most important thing in a startup is the team. Who's your team? Even when you go to an investor, the investor will ask you, who's your team? Why are they your team members? Oh, you can't say, we've been buddies for the last 10 years. We've been buddies for the last 3 years. No, you have to justify what is the purpose of A, B, or C being your team members. Why is Mary, Terry, Jane, or Jake, Paul, Tom your team member? You need to express and explain. And it's very important for you to explain that categorically. The team also helps you create your idea completely. It also helps you deliver your idea completely. A good team accelerates the process of success, and a bad team stops it. So it's very important for you to pick up people who add value and not just relationships that are good for you, because this is not personal. The minute you launch business, the minute you become an entrepreneur, nothing is personal, everything is professional. There is no emotion involved in business. There are only facts, and there are deliverables, there are milestones, and there are achievements. That's all. So you need to be very careful about how you position yourself in this, and make sure that you are getting a team that is good for you. Also, remember that all founders are not good CEOs. Maybe you came up with the idea, but you're not the right person to run it. So you need to find the right person to run the idea so that your business can succeed. Bear also in mind that according to research, 40% of all startups fail because founders believe that they are CEOs. And a bad CEO will always drive the business to the ground. Funding, of course, while most of you think that funding is the major prerequisite to launch your startup idea, no, it's not. It's actually one of the things that has to be done. What is more important is your idea. What is more important is the structure of your idea. What is more important is the validation process. What is more important is how do you take this forward and who's your team. You have different ways of looking at funding. You can bootstrap, which is you put your own money. Every investor likes to see that. They like to see an entrepreneur putting money, even if it's a small amount. And then you talk to family and friends, then you talk to supporters, and then you go to angel investors in the third stage. Usually when you are at seed level or pre-seed level, you go to investors. This way your structure of the startup is correct and your process is right. Crowdfunding is a good platform for you to begin with. I'm not sure which crowdfunding platforms are active in India, but I'm sure there are many. You should look at them and then start your funding journey from a crowdfunding platform. Mentors are very important. They basically make a difference between how strong your idea is because they give you right advice, they give you good support, they give you ideas based out of experience. But mentors are not easy to come by. Mentors are not just people who carry the CEO title or the vice president title or the successful title. You need a mentor that is connected to your startup idea. You need a mentor that has good experience to your startup idea. You need a mentor who's relevant to your business idea. And you need a mentor who's able to give you time, who's able to give you value. If a mentor is just there to say hi, hello, and be put in your slide deck, then that's not a mentor you need to have. You need to have a mentor-mentee relationship which is complete and perfect. You need to set up a schedule. You need to ask, can we speak every week? Can we speak every 4 weeks? If yes, what time, which date? You need to schedule this. Plus, you need to make an arrangement. Is this mentor going to do this for free? Do you need to offer this mentor sweat equity? Sweat equity means shares in your startup for free. You need to create all the structure. Why? Because the mentor needs to recognize you as a professional. The mentor needs to understand there's value at the end of this. It's not just I'm being nice to this young girl or this young boy. No, there is some money to be made out of this, because if this startup succeeds and I have some sweat equity, if I have some free shares, I'm going to make money out of it. You need to complete all of that. The concept of mentorship is very important, and you cannot take it lightly. You have to take it very, very seriously. So I hope that all of this today helps you understand how to come up with a good startup idea and how to basically use techniques that are very simple, that are very easy to follow. So I'll go again one by one so that we can run through them one more time. So the first way to come up with a startup idea is a skill that you're good at, and you use that skill to develop your startup idea. The second way of coming up with a good startup idea is that there's a problem that you've been suffering with, and you decided to solve that problem by creating a solution, and that solution became your startup idea. The third way of coming up with a startup idea is you become part of the food chain of what exists as a successful business, and then you deliver supporting services to that successful business. The fourth way of coming up with a startup idea is that you look at what's happening today and you try to imagine a trend that will come because of what's happening today, and that would be your successful startup idea. The fifth one is you're observant, you focus and you look around and you think, what can I transform that already exists into the digital space, into the electronic space, into a space which will become more convenient or easy for people to use, and that will become your startup idea. Sixth is that you become a person or an entrepreneur that makes something that exists cheaper. That will become your sixth option of becoming an entrepreneur with a startup idea that works for you. Now you need to validate your idea. So you need to ask 4 questions to 100 strangers, And those 4 questions are that do they agree with the problem that you recognize? Number 2, do they agree with the solution for the problem that you recognize? Number 3, would they be willing to pay for this solution, or would they like it free? And number 4, if they're willing to pay for it, well, how much money will they want to pay for it? Why? Because you need to register this. And if that feedback of 100 plus strangers is 80% plus positive, that they agree with you, you're ready to go ahead with your startup idea. Now that you're ready with that, you need to begin your creation of the business. So you need to start talking to family and friends about it. Then you need to create traction by doing your minimum viable product, which is your sample, your pilot, your testing phase. And then you need to do a soft launch for people to recognize with and say that, you know, we want to have more of this, and then you're ready to launch. And then, like I said, some of you will be good at this, which is you'll be good at communication, you'll be good at presentations, which is very good because it will be easier for you to attract investment. It will be easy for you to attract customers. And then what you do is make sure you have a good business plan. And the best way to come up with a good business plan is to talk to someone who's a trained financial expert, a trained marketing expert, so that your financial and your marketing in the business plan, which is the core elements, are professionally done. Finally, you need to have a team that is good, a team that adds value to the business, a team that is required for the business, and it's got nothing to do with your good relationships with them. They add value, they bring something to the table, as they say. And then once you have that, you need to look at funding options. How are you going to do it? The best way is to first put some of your own money into the startup, and then look for funding from family and friends, supporters, and finally by investors from outside. You have also the option of looking at crowdfunding platforms within India, where you can register and try and get yourself some initial traction. You need to look for mentors who are relevant to your business. You need to look for mentors who can add value. You need to look for mentors who can give you time. You need to schedule everything. You need to make sure that there's a give and take, that you are taking their time to give them some equity or something, so that they are more engaged and more professional with you. So that, in a nutshell, is today's workshop about how to come up with a good startup ideas for students like you who would like to have a career as an entrepreneur and develop that into a formidable business. This is what is very important for you. I like what my slide here says, that destinations do not really matter. What matters is the direction you take today. So as a startup entrepreneur, don't be worried about whether you have funding, whether you come from the right family background, whether there is enough support from family and friends, whether you're living in the right part of the country, whether you're accessible to a larger network. No, nothing matters. Trust me. For me, all of this is destination. What matters is the direction you take today. Because whatever you start today will become the focus, will become the energy that will drive success for you going forward. These are my communication channels. You can reach me on YouTube. My channel is called Abdulla Hassan Life Coach. My Instagram account and my LinkedIn account as well, where you can reach me. I'm now opening the floor for everybody to ask me questions and interact with me for the next some time, and then hopefully we'll have concluded this wonderful workshop. I hope you found it wonderful. I hope you found it beneficial. Nitya, would you like to take over?
Yes. So I shall connect you with all the questions which is there in the platform.
Mhm.
The first question which is asked is there a time factor which has to be considered for putting up your idea?
No, there's
Is
no
there a
time
right
factor.
time?
No, there's no right time or wrong time. The time for an idea is when you have enough in you, in terms of enthusiasm, in terms of zeal, in terms of excitement. A right idea is only a right idea when it comes to you. So there was no need, like I said, Uber was launched and nobody needed Uber. Airbnb was launched and nobody needed Airbnb, right? So it was just that the idea was right, and the enthusiasm and drive behind the idea was enough for this entrepreneur, the founders, to go ahead and take it forward. So the time is very much on your side. There's nothing delayed in the startup world. Everything is exactly right when you decide to call it right.
Okay. How can we market our ideas?
It all depends on what your idea is, number one. Number two, like I said, you need to talk to a marketing professional if you're still a student, because that will help you understand. Well, a short answer is social media. Everything is running on social media today. Today, governments are falling because of social media. Today, major brands are using social media to drive their communication message. So everybody is on Instagram, everybody is on Facebook, everybody is on LinkedIn, WhatsApp. Use all of these channels to create your concept marketing strategy. So how would you market? This is the cheapest way to market. The cheapest way to market is use social media.
The next question what we have is how to attract investors and communicate clearly to the potential investors regarding the seed money.
Okay, so like I said in my presentation in the workshop, investors are looking for the right idea. So have you got yourself the right idea? The way to get the right idea is to finish the validation, talking to the 100 strangers, which I told you about the 4 questions. That way the investor knows that you've done your research. Now the investor wants to know that have you got an idea which is interesting enough? How would that happen? That would happen by you preparing good slides, by you being able to communicate properly. And then after that, the investor will also be happy to see that you've put some of your own money into this. So the investor knows that you put your money where your mouth is. So you're not just looking for money, but you're also ready with your own risk. So the investor trusts you. There's a lot of trust in what you're bringing to the table. So everything is, see, when it comes to investors, you need to understand who your investor is and what he or she is looking for. It's not like there's a title called investor and you just enter the room and there's something that's going to happen. No, you need to do your research. You need to understand who's this investor, what startup businesses he or she has invested in. You do your research and then go and present your idea.
There is a description which is sent to me on WhatsApp as a question. Our startup service, our startup company is Servicify, which they have registered now, is an online aggregator, that is marketplace, for four-wheelers and two-wheelers repair and maintenance for multiple brand workshops across Navi Mumbai, and very soon they're going to launch their services in Mumbai as well. Their main aim is to make the unauthorized segment of service of maintenance of the automotive industry to an organized segment. Their business model is to connect both, that is, the consumer, those who are going to use the services for their four wheelers and two wheelers, and the garage owners, those who have their own garages. And their charges would be only 10 percentage of the bills, which is not offered by anybody else. So if they want a, seed capital, are they, I mean, will they be able to get it now when they have an average of 536 consumers, those who are using their service?
Okay, so there's no yes or no answer for that because it all depends on, like I said, who is the investor you're going to? Are you going to an investor who wants to see large customer adoption numbers? So his expectation will be different from your presentation. Or are you going to an investor who's looking for return on investment? Okay, who wants to see money coming in and profits being earned? Because both of them are different strategies, right? So if this is an investor that is looking for high customer adoption numbers, what is he looking for in your slides? He's looking for 2021, I will have 10,000 consumers using the service an average of 3 times in a year with a bill of 1,000 rupees each. I'm just throwing a number. Then in 2022, I jumped from 10,000 to 1,000,000 customers. Why? Because this is what he wants to look for. He wants to look for large adoption. He wants to look for a customer base which is growing bigger. Now, the caveat or the thing that comes with that is that you have more marketing expenses. So you need to raise more money, right? So compared to you're going to an investor who's looking for return on investment. So what you're doing is you're presenting to this investor something which is basically we're going to go from 500 customers to 250 to 5,000 customers in the next 6 months, and we're going to retain a margin of 10% that will be used inside the business, And then we're going to create a network which will allow us to have advertising as well, which will allow us to have spare parts business as well, where we can make commissions, etc., etc. And then our overall margin will be this much. So between the two presentations, the first one, you are saying, I'm going from 5,000 customers to 1 million customers, but you're asking for more money. Here you're saying, I'm going from 500 customers to 1,000 customers, and I need only this much money because I'll be making money out of it. So it all depends on what is your strategy. So I'm not aware of what this startup strategy is, but this is number one. And number two, who's the investor you're going to? So the investor, you need to understand what is the appetite of this investor. The biggest mistake done by most entrepreneurs in the startup world is that they go to investors without understanding what is their appetite. There are only two types of investors in the world. There are those who are looking for high adoption. So these are people who are looking for the big numbers. So they want a Sequoia or a SoftBank to acquire this company. And Sequoia and SoftBank are not going to acquire something that has 10,000 customers. They're going to acquire something that has 500 million customers, that has 10 million customers, that has 1 billion customers, right? So it's a different game. There are other investors who say, no, we want a profitable company. We want to earn money out of this. So it all depends on which is the investor that you're talking to.
And another question. Two boys, they are planning for introducing vertical garden structure in Mumbai. They have come up with some ideas through which you can produce your own vegetables at your home. So for this, they are developing few prototypes. Their question is, will big companies, that is, they have already taken appointment from Tata Group, so will these big companies be interested in these kinds of startups? They have in 10 days their appointment where they have to present.
Well, it all depends on what they're going to present, right? Have they done a test? Have they done a pilot? Number one. Number two, have they done enough research? Because vertical farming, there are many different technologies. Number three, vertical farming has limitations. They need to understand it. So while they say that this will be produce that you will grow and you will cook, for example, the produce doesn't happen every week. Okay, the produce happens in a few weeks. So have they done the math behind this to say that, okay, a 4-week produce can be cooked or used or consumed over the next 2 weeks, whatever it is. I'm not sure about the details, but they need to do that, because vertical farming sounds very interesting and sounds very appealing. But number one, it is not able to actually deliver the demand that is needed, number one. Number two, the cost of doing vertical farming is probably a little bit higher than what you get at the end of the street. So they need to do all of this homework. I'm sure they have. If they haven't, they need to do this. Before they go to Tata, they need to basically demonstrate that all the homework is done. That's why I always say validation is very, very important before you go to an investor.
Thank you very much, sir, to address all the questions. These were the relevant questions on the chat box as well as YouTube and the messages which I got. Thank you very much. Jenny Prajit ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Nitya. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. As Sir rightly says that in the last PPT that we see the slide, destinations do not really matter. What matters is the direction you take. I would really like to thank Mr. Abdulla Hassan. He has actually given us, I hope that students get a proper direction towards their entrepreneurs endeavors in the future. Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening the students, sparing your precious time for this workshop. Above all, I would like to thank our management for giving us a platform, for giving us an opportunity that we could conduct such a seminar and we could present it to the students so that it will be helpful for them in future endeavors. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Gajanan Vadel, Vice Principal, Deepika Sharma, I would like to also thank President IIC Nitya Varghese, convener Suparna Deepak, and above all, I would also like to thank the participants and our technical support staff. The session was really very helpful. I listened right from the beginning. Very valuable lesson, sir. Thank you once again for conducting the session for us. Thank you very much, sir.
So
Thank
let
you.
me just say a closing statement, if I can,
Yes, please, sir.
so that everybody understands why entrepreneurship is important for them. All the big names that everybody hears about, whether it's Jeff Bezos, Amazon, whether it's Steve Jobs, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg, where you name them, anyone, they all came from very humble beginnings. Some of them were actually very, very poor. So one of the founders of a very famous startup used to stand in a queue every day with his mother in America as a refugee, as an immigrant, to collect food stamps so that they have the food stamps to buy food. Okay, and then he became one of the founders of YouTube. The reason why I'm telling you all of this as students, as millennials, is that your current situation does not decide anything. It does not define your future in any context of the world. What defines it is where you want to go with this. How much belief do you have in yourself? And how far you can take your own self forward. We don't grow because of knowledge. We grow because of zeal, because of resilience. We grow because we are people who want to achieve. We grow because we are people who want to reach something. Always looking at other people's success is not a good way of living. You are a successful story. God did not send you to this world because you were supposed to fail. You have the same hands and legs and eyes and ears and nose and mouth and a sound and vision and hearing, just like Da Vinci, just like Einstein, just like Edison, just like Steve Jobs. So why are you different? You're different because you never took yourself seriously. You're different because you never decided to do something with yourself. You're different because you're busy looking at everybody else. You're different because everything that surrounds you seems so larger than life. So first rule of success is you need to believe in yourself. Second rule of success is that belief needs to have the ability to create a dream. And now you spend the rest of your life trying to achieve that dream. If all of you know Colonel Sanders of KFC, right? The man who launched Kentucky Fried Chicken. This guy, at the age of 16, developed this recipe of KFC. And he gave it to one restaurant who refused it, another restaurant who refused it, and so many restaurants. In the middle, he went to the war, World War I. As a soldier, came back. His father had died. His mother had died. He was an orphan, and he was still trying to sell his recipe. Nobody liked it. Then he got married. He got divorced, and still nobody wants his recipe. He offered his recipe to 1,110 restaurants until the 1,110th restaurant said, this is a lovely recipe, let's launch it. And it became KFC. McDonald's, and you must have seen the movie of McDonald's, where the original owners of McDonald's were not the people who made it McDonald's. It was a guy who was selling them some machines. Starbucks, the original owner of the Starbucks stores in Seattle was not the people who launched Starbucks. It was Howard Schultz who was selling them coffee machines. So it all depends on what you want to do and how serious this is for you. And if it is serious, trust me, you would spare a lot of your partying, a lot of your movie watching, a lot of your social media time on the phone, and you would do something with your life. And that's how you go from nothing to everything. There is no godfathers, there is no promoters, there is no rich uncle. It's just you. And the minute you realize how important you are, how unique you are, how special you are, that is when everything starts changing for you. So today I'm here to tell you to your face that you're special. And the only thing you need to do is to find your uniqueness by spending time on yourself. So I wish all of you the best, and I wish all of you a lot of success, good health, and invest your time in yourself. Do something with your life. And I hope for all of you and your families, a lot of success and good health. I hope everybody benefited from this. Be in touch with me on my social media as declared here on the slide.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much. Danish, we have stopped live. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Shut. Oh, sorry. Ishan, we are done here, right?